private. And can everyone see my screen okay that says welcome?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this is the first time we have offered a gathering for our lay regional reps, and we thought it was an opportunity for us to meet together and to share some information, and also to hear your questions about your role as a lay representative. And I'd like to start with an opportunity to acknowledge the territory. I live outside of Aylmer, Ontario, so I am on land that is represented by Treaty 3, and the treaty is called the Land Between the Lakes Purchase of 1792. What I find interesting is that the western border for this treaty is Catfish Creek, which runs through Aylmer and into Lake Erie at Port Bruce, and it stretches over to Lake Ontario. I recognize that in your areas, there will be different treaties and different Indigenous groups that lived in your area. For me, it's the Anishinaabe, the Attawandarock, the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Mississaugas. So I also want to take an opportunity to acknowledge the pain and the devastation that contact with settlers brought to the Indigenous people, and the suffering that has continued through the centuries to the present day. I would also ask us to join together in remembering the ongoing contributions of the Indigenous peoples within Canada and within our communities. And may our reflections today, as you think about the people who lived in your areas, lead us to renew our commitment to the vital work of reconciliation with the First Peoples of this land. And now I would invite you to join me in prayer. Holy One, we give you thanks for this opportunity to join together as your church. As technology unites us through the internet, your Holy Spirit unites us with our hearts and minds and souls as we work together to carry out the ministries that have been entrusted to us. May your blessing be upon our discussions as we listen and share with one another. Amen. So I'll confess that I don't multitask really well. So if I'm admitting people or switching slides, I may not be as smooth at this as some people are, but I will do my best to keep all my screens where they're supposed to be. What I wanted to start with was an introduction to the staff team that we have. And I'm pleased to see that Kathy has joined us. Kathy Douglas has joined us this evening. So there she is waving for those who can see her on your screen. She and I are part of a wonderful staff team that works together through the 3 regions of Western Ontario Waterways, Horseshoe Falls, and Antler River Watershed Regional Councils. So we have Cheryl Ann, that many of you will know, Stadelbauer Sampa, who is our executive minister and basically oversees and supports in the areas of governance and administration, and is a wonderful mentor to me, and I think has been to many people over the years. McCall Cottrell is new to our staff team. He joined us when Diane Blanchard retired, and he is the Minister for Pastoral Relations. So anything dealing with the hiring of ministers and appointments, M&P committees, the human resources pieces. Kathy, who is with us tonight, she is the Minister for Faith Formation, and she supports the Mission and Discipleship Commission, and works with children, youth, and young adults, and the camping programs and UCW groups, etc. And she runs a lot of different workshops on a variety of topics as well. Sue Doulaban is our executive assistant. She provides admin support to a number of areas, especially to the executive and to Cheryl Ann and the regional council that way. Then we have Krista Ford, who is our administrative financial person. And if anyone has been a pastoral charge supervisor, then you know that Krista is the person that you have to send your mileage reports to. Pratima, some of you may know Pratima because she also worked in the London conference office. She's our admin assistant for communication and records. She does our newsletters and is often in contact with each of you when you register for the different workshops or regional gatherings, I mean. John Neff is my colleague in Western Ontario Waterways, and he does the same role that I do. And the two of us work together on developing a lot of the resources that we have shared in our work. And then we have Michelle Pettick, who is the admin assistant for website management. Michelle also works with me as support to the Covenant Commission in Horseshoe Falls. Therese Samuel is the Minister for Right Relations and Social Justice, and she also works with Mission and Discipleship Commission, and she works on social justice ministries and support for Indigenous and non-Indigenous churches in the work of building right relations. Kevin Steeper is what we call the minister to the ministers. He provides pastoral support, pastoral care support to all the ministry personnel in all three regions. Martha Pettiquet is our new community capacity development coordinator. Try saying that quickly. It's a bit of a tongue twister. She works with the Indigenous Ministries and Justice Unit and with the Indigenous communities in our three regions. Tanya Cameron is Office of Vocation Minister, who is deployed to work in our three regions, and she works with the Office of Vocation with people with ministry personnel and candidates and people who are in the admissions process. And then we have Brenna Baker. Brenna is also new to the teams. Dave Jagger has moved to a different position with the stewardship office. And so Brenna is our new Community of Faith Stewardship Officer. She has phenomenal ideas and suggestions and energy around stewardship, and would love to have you contact her if you would like some more information about stewardship ideas and resources for your community. And then there's me, and I am the Minister for Congregational Support in Horseshoe Falls and Antler River Watershed. And I work with the Covenant Commissions in both of those regions to basically provide support and resources to congregations on all matters that are not human resources. So property, governance, community of faith profiles, buying and selling, renovating, amalgamations, disbanding, collaborative agreements between congregations. All of those types of work fall to the Covenant Commission, and I resource the Covenant Commission. And we do have a lot of fun together too. So what I wanted to start by saying up front is the fact that as the lay rep for your congregation, you have a very important role and position. A role and position both in the life of your own congregation, but in the life of the regional council. You are the ones who represent your community of faith at regional council meetings and vote on very important matters. You participate in the work of the commissions, and if you have not yet figured out what commission you would like to work with, we're always happy to provide more information about what each of the commissions does. And we are looking for volunteers to help us help congregations. For example, one of the new groups I'm hoping to put together is a small group of people, hopefully with representation across the region, who will basically be there to offer pastoral care support to congregations who are disbanding. The reality is that we do have a number of churches who are closing, and COVID has sort of sped up the process for some churches. And it would be nice to have a member of regional council who is just there to attend some of their final services and let them know that they are being held in the hearts of regional council. So if that is something that you think you might want to learn more about, then certainly send me an email or get in touch with me, call me, and let me know that you might want to be involved in something like that. If you want to be involved with, mission and discipleship, talk to Kathy. Human resources would be McCall, but we're always happy to help you sort out where your gifts and skills and interests would fit best. You also have that very important role of being a liaison to carry information between your community of faith to the regional council and from the regional council back to your congregation. Just a sort of quick show of hands, how many of you actually have a position on your governing body, your board or your council? Okay, many of you do. And in some cases, it's not a formal position, but we would encourage you to talk to your board and ask for opportunities to come and make a presentation on occasion so that you can help them stay up to date about regional council information, decisions that have been made, the resources that we have to offer, and the relationship, because ultimately this is a relationship between congregations and the regional councils. And we want people to know that we're sharing in ministry with you. This is something we do together. And you can also provide guidance to your governing body and congregation regarding the types of projects that require approval both at the congregational level and the regional council level, and how to arrange for that, and where there are things that are required from regional council. For example, remember when you always had to take, some of you will remember if you were presbytery reps, you had to take copies of your annual report to presbytery. Now we ask that congregations email digital copies of their annual reports to me for the Covenant Commission each year. So that is something that we're starting to get the word out, but we still only get about a third of the annual reports we should. So if you can communicate that to your board, I would very much appreciate it. And that's the kind of information that it's helpful to have you there to help educate your congregation. One of the other things you can do is let people know that we really have a helpful website. And I'm going to show you the website in a minute and where to find some of the items on it. But that is the first place to go when people have questions, because there are a lot of resources there. We would also like you to make sure that when your church hub information is updated, usually around the time that the statistics are updated, that they name you as their lay rep in the community of faith roles section with your contact information. so that we know who are the lay reps, because some congregations have more than one, depending on the size of the congregation. And that way we can make sure we can get in touch with you and share with you the information about upcoming things. Also, if for any reason your congregation has not yet set up their Church Hub account, it's important for them to do so, because this is the main source of contact information for a mailing address for your congregation, an email address, a phone number, and we need to have that current so that we can send you the information that you need to have. And we also know that sometimes the contact person is a member of the congregation rather than an office admin person. And so it's important to make sure whoever is getting the mail, that is updated as well, because sometimes important documents can go astray if we don't have the right information. I'm going to talk about the community of faith profile and self-assessment a little more in a few minutes, but this is something that we would really like to make a project for all congregations in 2023, is to get their community of faith completed, community of faith profile completed, and to start using the self-assessment form. So again, 2 pieces that you can take back to your congregation governing bodies. And as I mentioned before, being involved with one of the commissions is also an opportunity that you have. If there are, I can't see everybody on one screen, but if there are questions at any point, you can raise your hand using, I can't find it now, under at the bottom, there'll be a place to raise your hand, or just unmute yourself and let me know that you have a question. So one of the most important places to look on the website is the Congregational Support Toolkits. And that's where you will find handbooks and templates and worksheets. We always say it's the best place to start, because often people just reach out to me with their question, which is fine, but I'm going to also refer them to the website. So if they have looked at what's there, then that might answer their question without them having to wait for an email response from me, or it might change the questions that you have to answer, have to ask me. So let's take a look at the website. My computer's a little slow. Okay. So this is the home page for the ARW website. I don't know if any of you have used this much in the past. I see some people nodding their heads. That's great. That's what I want to hear. There is a section here, so that staff directory is listed under the About section, and that's where you can find all our contact information. There's a lovely map of the region that if you click on it, it shows you all the United Churches in ARW. And if you want, you can go over to this side and just look up the name of the church too. So if you wanted Avondale United Church, it would come up with a white circle and it would show you that it's in Tillsonburg. So often people are saying, well, how do we get information about the churches around us? This is one of the way you can do it. And you see it even pops up and gives you a phone number and an address. And if there's a website, it will often include the website information as well. So this can be helpful if you're trying to figure out who's in our area that we might want to get together with, or to talk to about sharing a project. Under communities of faith, this is the one I really wanted to look at today. There is information on pastoral relations toolkits, and then there is information on congregational support toolkits. And this is the one that the area where I work. And we have a number of toolkits. So the first is about the covenant between the region and communities of faith. I'm not going to talk about that one tonight because this is going through a bit of a change and we are going to be updating our resources here. So stay tuned. There will be new information about this. This is one of the key ones I wanted to talk about, which is the community of faith profile. Again, just wave your hands. How many of your congregations have done a community of faith profile? Excellent. So most congregations have done it because they needed to go into search. And it is one of the requirements for creating a ministry personnel position. But that isn't its only purpose. It's not a JNAC that was just for search. This is a tool that serves many purposes. It is an excellent discernment tool for your congregation to use. It is also a helpful background tool for any decision. So if you want to buy or sell something, a piece of land, and you need approval from the Covenant Commission, they're going to ask for your profile as background information. If you want to apply for a technology grant, for example, or a church modernization grant, they're going to ask for your profile as background. You want to use some of your restricted funds for a new ministry initiative, profile is going to be needed as background. Technically, every congregation is required to do this and update it annually. I don't want to say you do it because you're supposed to do it. I'm going to encourage you to do it because it really is a good tool for discernment. And John and I have recently updated the worksheets and streamlined things a little bit. So because it's often done and has to be updated for a search process, we've included this preparing to search document here, which is just an overview of the steps for the process for hiring a new minister. So if that is something that your congregation is going to be needing to do, then you can find this here. There's a handbook on how to do the community of faith profile. Handbooks are always a good place to start. The financial viability worksheet, and I'll have to do this fairly quickly. I can spend a lot of time on this because I get pretty excited about these resources, but it's a worksheet that asks some of the questions that are important for discernment and planning. Where an annual report gives you 1 year's view of how you're doing financially, this collects up to 6 years so that it helps your congregation see trends in your income and expenses. It also collects the information about your investments so you can see where you're at with those. It looks at payroll costs so you can compare how that's changed over the years. It asks about your building expenses, because if we see buildings that start to cost more than 25% of your total revenue, it could mean that, maybe you need to address some building issues because it may become a liability rather than an asset for your ministry. So what can we do about making it more efficient or trying to generate more income from it or whatever? Have you had deficits for more than a couple of years? Are there outstanding loans? And then we get into questions about how many contributors. And again, what has been the trend in the number of contributors supporting your congregation? This question always seems to throw people a bit because it asks about the age groups of your givers. you know this, and you answer this in the demographic form, what the ages, general ages are of your members. We don't ask you to check birth certificates or anything. But this is important because if the majority of your contributors are in these boxes, then you need to do some planning for the next 2 to 5 years. Also, if you rely on 1 or 2 givers to carry a large portion of your budget, it can be a concern. And then there's questions here about whether you've done any stewardship programs. So hopefully people gather that information to help them get a better sense of their financial strength or challenges as a congregation. The next one is a demographic worksheet. And get it open. And it asks some of the basic questions you'd expect, like how many people in different age groups you have in your church, what your church is like. But this is the part that we really get excited about, is it's a chance for you to sort of talk to your congregation and find out what their gifts, skills, and passions are, because we believe that the Holy Spirit gifts you with the gifts, skills, and passions that you need for the ministry you've been given. So you might have conversations and discover that you have people in your congregation with gifts that you weren't even aware of. Somebody who's an incredible woodworker, or somebody who, is a phenomenal violin player, and you might be able to, encourage them to take part in your music program. All sorts of things that this can help you learn about your human resources in your congregation. And then a chance to sort of think about who you are as a community of faith, a few questions about your governing structure and your building, and then also about your neighborhood, a chance to look around, see what partnerships might be available, what other groups you might be able to work with, or where those gifts and skills might be welcomed in your neighborhood, so that you can work together with other agencies or other congregations in the area. The real property worksheet, I'm not even going to open. It's just a 1-page where you list any property you own. Basically, you'd put the address of your church, the address of any cemeteries, or any other land or a manse, so that we have a record of what land you own. It's very helpful because we need to keep track, especially of the cemeteries that are owned by the United Church, so that none of them end up being uncared for. And then finally, we have the living faith story. And this is meant to be a summary of all that other work. The first sheets collect the data about your congregation. And then this one is a chance to say who you are based on that. So a lot of congregations have a mission statement or something. This is a chance to pull it out again and see if it still makes sense, still fits who you are. If you have specific values, some congregations value things like hospitality or it being inclusive, or being willing to take a risk. Those are things that you might put there. Who are you as a congregation? What makes you unique? Any goals that you might have? And I've added, how does your living faith story guide your decision making? Because if you have a set of values and priorities, ministry priorities, then when you make decisions at your board, you can say, okay, is this decision in keeping with what we've identified as our priorities? Is that making sense? And then there's a page that this is to describe who you are under all these various headings of worship, pastoral care, etc. And there's a priority number. So this is a thing that you can use like as a handout in church and ask your members to decide to rate which is their highest priority and give that feedback to the governing body, because you might think that everybody is going to put worship as number one and be surprised to find out that a large percentage of your congregation says that community outreach and social justice is actually their highest priority. And so how would that shape your decision making and your staffing? And the other reason we use these headings is because if you are in search for a new minister, ministers' profiles include the same headings, and it helps the search team sort of compare who the congregation is with who the minister says they are and what their gifts and skills are in these same areas. So those are the pieces that are in the community of faith profile. And so they all work together. Once you have completed it once, then it just needs to be reviewed and updated each year. And we recommend that that happens in time for it to be approved by your congregation at the annual meeting, and that just becomes a habit that each year you update it, approve it at the annual meeting, and then it's there and ready to go if you need it for any of those purposes that I mentioned earlier. And it's a good way to take stock at the end of a year to see, has this trend changed? Are we experiencing new challenges, or have we had, a wonderful increase in givings as a result of a stewardship program you may have done, that sort of thing. And as I go through here, you can see that we also have a toolkit on property matters. So this is everything from leases to buying and selling property, major renovations. The trustees can find information here. Amalgamating and disbanding. We have information and handbooks available. For if you have a pastoral charge supervisor, there's a handbook here that can help explain the role of the pastoral charge supervisor for you. And this is the self-assessment that I mentioned. So this is the other key piece that I wanted to review with you tonight. There is an information sheet and instructions, and then the actual checklist. And the reason we created this is because you don't know what you don't know. There have been so many changes in what is required of congregations by the Ontario provincial governments, because you're an employer, because you're a public building, for all sorts of reasons. There are things that you need to have in place, and you may not be aware of it as a congregation. So this is a checklist, but we don't want people to panic. If you go through the list and find there are several things that you need to work on, then you pick a couple and work on them that year. So it's not that you have to get this whole list checked, within a short period of time. This is a reference to help you know what pieces you maybe need to be working on. And if you go back to those toolkits, we are working at providing templates for some of the policies that are required and other guidance to help you with some of the government pieces. So there's information like making sure that you've updated your church hub, as I talked about earlier. The policies that are required by law, by the government. So things like a privacy policy, workplace violence and harassment, copyright, accessibility. And the new one we have to add here is health and safety, because we're employers, we have to have a health and safety, and we should have a health and safety officer in each congregation as well. So we are in the process of trying to get some resources for that. And then there's things about making sure that your charitable status return, for example, has been filed. We found during COVID that a few churches missed filing, and then you're in danger of losing your charitable status, which can be a real problem because you can't write tax receipts if you don't have charitable status. So again, a checklist just to help everybody know. And it might be that you had a treasurer for 20 years who knew exactly what had to be done, but they've now retired from that position. And the new treasurer may not be aware of these requirements. So this is a way to help the members of the board as well know what needs to be done. There are things that the United Church asks that you do, and there are things that the trustees need to be aware of, like making sure they have insurance. I would really, really like to see congregations check their deeds to make sure the title has been updated, because we frequently find churches go to sell property and discover it still says it's in the name of the Methodist or Presbyterian church. So please check your deeds to see if they are in the name of the United Church. And then there's, again, suggestions of things that you should have for like signing authorities for your finances and personnel committee, ministry and personnel committee, stewardship recommendations, record keeping, etc. Again, it's a long list, but it's not meant to be, it's meant to be a checklist and to help you know what you didn't know. So I'm going to close this. There's under compliance. That's where I said we're trying to get some templates and resources to help with. So I recognize that I have just pushed a lot of information your way. And so now I want to take an opportunity to stop sharing my screen so I can see more of you and open it up for you to ask questions about anything involving your role as the representative from your congregation. Celia?
I'm interested in the insurance offer from the General Council to set up our churches with new insurance policies with them.
So the United Church has made the decision to be self-insuring, which means they are going to underwrite the insurance policies, and they will be working through a accredited insurance company to do the management. But the hope is that we'll be able to reduce the premiums by at least 15% and hopefully more. And that at some point we can also maybe have a more flexible policy in terms of replacement value, because we know a lot of congregations have very large churches, but if they were to burn down, they would replace them with something smaller. And right now the trustees are required to have replacement value. So that piece I don't think has been quite finalized yet, but the idea is by having it as a self-insured program, we'll have more control. Now, congregations will still have to make sure their buildings are maintained. They will still have to have and probably some a review or inspection periodically to make sure that wiring has been updated, those sorts of things. It's not going to be an opportunity to cut corners, because if that happened, then we might end up with huge claims and we would bankrupt the program. But this is the hope, and it is a risk because we are underwriting it ourselves. So if you are already with Hub Insurance, Hub International, you are getting letters already, and these changes go into effect, I believe, at your renewal date. If you are not with Hub and wish to join, then I think there'll be information coming out in the future. Eric Matheson is the Chief Financial Officer, and he's the one that's coordinating the program. There's also, if you haven't watched the webinars for treasurers, you might recommend that to your treasurer because he often talks about the insurance program on there as well. Did you get a letter already, Celia, about it?
No, I read.
Oh, you read about it. Okay. So, and I mean, it's still optional. You do not have to follow that way. If you're already in Hub, you'll automatically be moved over. If you have private insurance through a local co-op or whatever, then it's up to you to decide who you wish to insure with. So, but it's exciting. Yeah, Lynn. That's all right. There you go.
Okay, sorry.
No problem.
So Eric did an excellent video presentation at the semi-annual meeting, and it's on YouTube, and it's on a Saturday morning. It starts at minute 22, I think it is, and goes till minute 45. It's about a 20-minute information presentation that I found very helpful, and that I sent the link to our trustees about.
Oh, excellent, Lynn. Yes, I've forgotten about it being part of that fall gathering recording. And so that is a good resource. That if you've got the, if you go to the recording on YouTube for the fall gathering, it'll be there. Other questions or other things, suggestions, ways we can help support the lay reps in your role. Again, I can only see one screen at a time, so you may just have to speak up if you have questions. Karen or Catherine, sorry.
If you are in a small church and somebody wanted to be on a commission, but they weren't the Antler River rep, can they do that?
I think so. But I think yes, Kathy's nodding her head. I believe I asked this question a while ago and the answer was yes. So that they would need to fill out an expression of interest and probably let the executive know that they were interested in participating. Also, anybody can join the newsletter list. You know, you can sign up your whole board to join the newsletter list to be able to get some of those updates. And anybody can join the Facebook page, which is also where some of the more current information about things like, you know, we encourage you to post if you're having a covenanting service with a new minister, put it on there. If you've got a special event coming up, put it there, because our newsletters only come out at set dates. So that is the way to get up information that you want out in a hurry. If you're trying to sell stuff, we've had congregations that, you know, had extra dishes or whatever. Sometimes we'll put it on Facebook and find that there might be another congregation or somebody, a camp that is interested in that type of thing. I don't think we want to turn it into completely, you know, church Kijiji, but those resources are there for the congregations to use.
Lynn, Jack L has his hand up.
Oh, thank you. Jack?
For the safety stuff, our council right now is going through this thing. Who should be responsible for safety?
Can you explain a little more what type of safety?
Well, the fellow who's in charge of property says, no, it shouldn't be property that's in charge of safety, and perhaps it should be, because some of the safety concerns would be property oriented, I think.
So
But
this touches a little bit on that occupational health and safety piece as an employer. So I would say it is ultimately the responsibility of the governing body.
okay,
And then the governing body can direct. It might say to the trustees, you have a responsibility because they're responsible for liability, right? So they can work with the property team, but it's their responsibility is liability. M&P has a responsibility from a employer perspective. So for example, if you have custodian, you should have WMIS sheets to cover all of the chemicals they use in cleaning. Perhaps even provide them with some WMIS training, because terrible things can happen if you mix drain cleaner with bleach or something, right? That's important to in terms of safety. So that's why I was kind of asking what areas. In terms of your fire safety, again, that's usually an insurance and a public building requirement to have fire extinguishers, proper exit signs over your doors, smoke detectors, and CO2 detectors. So the trustees can work with the property team. I know it's also usually recommended that those things be tested once a month, and somebody initial that it's been tested, or some churches will hire a company that comes in and checks their fire extinguishers twice a year and initials that that's been done, so that if you have a fire and insurance says, prove to us that your system was up to date, you have that record. Does that help, Jack?
yes, you also in a way provided me with a chuckle. I have now been retired for 11 years, and one of the things I was on at work was a safety committee. I was the recorder, and I took on the responsibility of doing the WMIS stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of sheets out there.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found interesting more than 11 years ago was some of them said no recorded danger.
Mm.
So like for printers, the black, the cartridges,
Mm-hmm.
should there be a WMIS sheet for a printer cartridge? Probably not, but.
Yeah, I would, like I said, my first priority, I mean, I've poked myself with my stapler before. I don't, so some of us can get injured pretty easily, but things like chemicals, and whether it's a paid custodian or volunteers, and also if you've got children or mamas and tots groups or something like that in your building, are keeping cleaners right under the kitchen sink where they could, somebody could get them. Those are things to be looking at to keep them safe.
From what you said a few moments ago, it sounds like the safety thing should be a divided responsibility. Property responsible for a certain thing, ministry and personnel for another part of it, et cetera, et cetera.
And ultimately, it's the governing body and the trustees who carry the biggest responsibility.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Dawn, I see your hand up.
Yeah, you asked about how I could use support or being liaison between region and my congregation. What I struggle with most is my council has me report monthly about activities of region and what's been going on. I have a really hard time synthesizing all the information that region is downloading to me into a concise little bit that I can just spit out in like 5 minutes. I'm working full time. I've got lay worship preaching going on, and there's a lot of information to be moving around, and I'm finding it really difficult to keep up.
That's an excellent point, because I know our newsletters are very full, and so it might be asking the board what would be the most important things for them to learn about. It might be offering to help them sign up for the newsletters themselves. And then you report on things like, what's happened at this fall and spring gatherings, and, maybe, again, help them with something specific like a tour of the website so that they can see what's going on about, specific things that are resources available to them. So it may be that they don't need all the newsy stuff. Does that help, Dawn? Because I don't think we're gonna get a smaller newsletter. We get a lot of requests to put things in the newsletter. The main thing is probably for you to communicate that there are resources. Maybe you pick out a few key things, if you have time, that you think pertain the most to your congregation. And, again, let them know that it's available if they want to pursue it in more detail. Is that
I'll put a thumb into that.
okay? Louise.
I just wanted to kind of answer the question that she had there. I told our council, because I'm on a commission as well, so there are meetings I'm involved in that I can't report to them until it comes out officially. And I just report on the times that we have an annual meeting. Like I will put in a report, meeting of the lay reps took place on this night, but they all are signed up, are supposed to be anyway, signed up for the newsletter themselves, and they can raise questions.
And part of what you might, your role, Dawn, might also be, connecting them to the right person within regional council who can help, or the right commission. And, when in doubt, any staff person will help you figure out what is the right commission to talk to. We're also finding that, people are still learning what the regional council is about. So providing some examples of how regional council works to work with and support the ministry of congregations is helpful. So, if you sort of were to highlight, what mission and discipleship, how they work with UCW groups and camps and that sort of thing, at one meeting, and then at another meeting about the Covenant Commission. And, again, there's information about those commissions online and in the governing handbook. The message we keep repeating is that, we're all in this together, and we recognize that things are challenging for churches, and we want them to know that you're not alone. Regional Council is here to work with you on whatever's going on. I've had a question from Rob Hawken about the interactive map. I do know that there's been a lot of changes recently. Congregations and pastoral charges changing their names, some that have disbanded, some that have amalgamated. And my apologies that it sometimes takes us a bit of time to get those updated. And also sometimes our geography may be a little bit off. So I have the information about Melville, and we'll try to change that. But if you ever see something that doesn't look correct on that interactive map, then send me an email and I can pass it along to those who manage the website, and we can get that taken care of. My email is on the website, but if people want to write it down, it's L for Lynne, Allin, Allin, at united-church.ca. And we all follow the same format. So Kathy Douglas would be K Douglas at united-church.ca. And same with McCall and all the staff. I'm just looking to see if there's any other hands up. Lynn?
What I found is also, and I was just looking at it today. What is also out of date is the Antler River directory. And I think the information is pulled from Church Hub. And I think ministers need to get on. We need to encourage our ministers to get on and update their information, because some of them are listed at a previous church, for instance.
Right, and people move so frequently that whenever we do something like a directory, it's a snapshot in time. It's always going to be outdated because we're going to find out a week afterwards that somebody is retiring or somebody is, taken a different call. But we are working on trying to get an updated one. But you're absolutely right. We have to rely on Church Hub, which provides the database for information. And I know we did a mailing about a year and a half ago, and we got at least 10 letters, return to sender. So, which means that the church's addresses on Church Hub were not accurate. So that's why it's so important that that be updated, because we can't reach you if we don't have the proper information. One other thing, I see it's 8 o'clock and I don't want to keep you later, but another good practice to encourage your congregations is to keep all church records and books at the church in a secure location. Again, through COVID, we started finding that there was a practice in many churches that maybe the treasurer kept books at home and the trustees kept things at home, and the secretary might keep the minute books at home. And then unfortunately, if someone goes into hospital or passes away, then the congregation is trying to get a hold of somebody who's a family member or has power of attorney to be able to access those records that are in their homes. Or if you need them in a hurry, you can't find them. So that's another good practice, is to make sure that all those records are kept in the church. So because they are church property, and that's where you're going to be able to find them when you need them. So it is 8 o'clock, and I am very respectful of your time. Unless there are any other questions, I want to thank you for coming. I hope this was helpful. This is something we'd like to do again. And, we had 26 of you joining us, 27 with Kathy. So obviously we still have other people to reach out to that couldn't join us tonight, and still some congregations that do not have lay reps. So I am grateful to you for what you do for your congregations, and let people know it can be fun, and that it's important and we need you. And if you think of questions after tonight, then again, feel free to send me an email. It might take me a couple days to respond, but I will get back to you. And blessings on your evening.
Thank you, Lynn. It was very, very good information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See, for my first Merry Christmas from John Ross. Thank you, John.